Hi friends, it's Jessie here. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. For today's video, we are going to be going through my expenses for the week, taking a look at all of the money that I spent, and we're going to compare the amount that I spent to the amount that I budgeted, and we're going to see how we did, if we came in under or over budget. We are also going to be taking a look at my weekly check-in, figuring out how much is left in my cash envelopes so that I know kind of where we are going to be starting out for week 2. So, without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into it. So flipping back here, I've got all of this cash that I need to actually deposit it into the bank. We did quite a bit of spending from our sinking funds this week, which you will see as I kind of go through. So I'm just going to set this off to the side so that I can take that to the bank. But for now, we're going to take a look at my paycheck budget that I wrote out with you all in a previous video. If you missed this budget, I will link it in a card above here if I remember. I'm not always great at remembering those things, but I surely will try. So we're going to take a look at what I budgeted. We're going to take a look at my expense tracker to see what I actually spent. If we are under budget in a category, I'm going to go ahead and write in my black pen here. If I'm over budget, I'll write it in red. That way I can just take a quick glance at my budget worksheet and see the areas that I'm over budget. But for the most part, with the way that I've been doing my budget recently with my expense tracking and doing my cash envelopes, rolling things over, and also with me saving my sinking funds until the end of the month, these paycheck budget worksheets get filled in pretty much as planned for the most part, so there should not be a ton of use for this red pen. However, I do have an unbudgeted expense this week, so that'll get written in red. So I've kind of situated my worksheets so that I can use them in tandem here, and we're just going to start off at the top and work our way down. So starting with Canva, which is the first expense here on my list, you can see I budgeted $13 for that. When I do my expense tracker, I do one expense tracker per week. So we're looking at week 1, which is November 2nd through the 8th, and that's the same week, of course, that this paycheck budget is for. We do budget weekly since my husband gets paid every single week. And I have a little color coding system that I use here. So Canva is a bill, so it's going to be in blue. So I just need to kind of look through these blue transactions here until I find it. And I can see that my Canva came out on November 6th, and it was actually $12.99. So that's the amount then that I will write in here under the actual column. Next we have Boost. I budgeted $120 for that. That's also a bill. So again, I'm just going to go down my expense tracker, find it, and I can see that the amount that came out as was $120, just as anticipated. So that goes pretty darn quick and easy. For Camper, that's also a bill. I budgeted $200 for that, and you can see that is what that came out as $200 even. For this transaction here, I budgeted $60 to go towards my son's indoor soccer league, but that actually isn't starting until week 2, I discovered. So this actually came out as 0 because I did not need to pull that money out. So this amount, the $60 for soccer, will just kind of roll over to next week, and I'll put it in my budget for next week. So that did not come out. However, I did have an unbudgeted expense. You can see here in this dark pink color on my expense tracker. When I went to pay our annual campsite fee, you guys know I had $1,400 set aside in my campsite sinking fund. You can see that line item right here. I hope you guys can see. I messed with the lighting a little bit. I don't know how well you guys can see. Hopefully this video turns out okay. But then when we went to pay it, apparently the price had gone up and I missed the memo. So it actually, with taxes and everything, came out to be $1,455 or $1,454 and change. So I gave them the $1,400, but then $55 I had to go ahead and swipe my card for as an unbudgeted expense, so I need to write that in here under this checking. I did use my debit card, so that came out of my buffer, which is fine. I had the money in there, it's just that I didn't have it budgeted, so I budgeted $0 for that, but then the amount, as I said, was $55. So that I will write in red, just so that I can easily glance at my page and see that I was $55 over budget there. However, because the soccer didn't come out, I budgeted $60, but it came out as $0. My total for the week is still going to be under budget, even though I did have that $55 unbudgeted. Does that make sense? I'm sure it does. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my calculator here. Excuse me, I choked on that word there. Open up my calculator here, and we're going to add up these actual totals. So $12.99 plus $120 plus $200 plus $55 is $387.99. So we are still under budget because that soccer money did not have to come out this week. So that worked out pretty darn good. All right, now we're going to move on to my cash envelopes. You can see that I've already written in that the actual amount here matches the budgeted amount, and that is because that's how much I pulled out of the bank to put into my cash envelopes. But that's not what I actually spent. To find out what I actually spent, I need to flip here and do my weekly check-in. So I'm actually just going to kind of pull this out and bring it forward for us to look at. So I kind of started filling this in with our starting balance. I need to fill in our amount that we added and then the amount that we spent, and that will give me a remaining balance, and that's how much is left in my cash envelopes to move into week 2. The remaining balance for week 1 will also be the starting balance for week 2. So I need to look at food first. So we had a starting balance of $0. When I started out week 1, I didn't have any money in there. It was completely empty. But we added here $200. So I'm going to go ahead and write that in. We added $200. Now for what we spent. So for that, we go back to my expense tracker. So all of my food transactions are in yellow. Budgeted myself $200 for food for the week, and that includes any eating out that we do, any groceries that we buy, and all of those are in yellow. So I already went ahead and added everything up off camera just so that this video wouldn't be super long. If you guys want to see the process of my expense tracking and how I go through and do the math and color code everything, since I've changed things a little bit from doing the stickers in my calendar to doing it this way. If you guys want to see that process, let me know. I'd be happy to film it for you, but for this video, I just went ahead and did it off camera to make it quicker and easier. So you can see we did quite a bit of eating out this week, and we had to spend very little on groceries. If you watched my grocery haul from week 1, it was a whole lot of Ibotta deals. We got a lot of free food from Ibotta for Thanksgiving. So the amount that we spent on actual groceries this week, we had $17, and that was that grocery trip I did with the Ibotta that I filmed for you guys. And then we had another $17 later on in the week when we went to Walmart and we just picked up some dessert and some snacks, that sort of thing. We do that quite often. I don't like to keep a lot of junk food in the house these days. I tend to just do my grocery shopping and purchase what we need for meals and healthier snacks, and I tend to spend less on like chips and sweets and that sort of thing, because I have a major sweet tooth and I will eat all of that if I keep it in the house. So if we decide we want to have a dessert or a special treat, we will typically make a special trip for that, and that is what this was. We picked up a couple of pies and some snacks and things. So that was another $17 there. The rest, I believe, was eating out. So we did do quite a bit of eating out this week, but we were out of town at my camper to celebrate my birthday. And I pulled some money from our celebration sinking fund for that when we purchased, I'm saying a lot, sorry. We purchased steaks to make up at our campground to celebrate my birthday, and we got some birthday cupcakes and things. But then also while we were up north, we did quite a bit of eating out. So in the end, short story, very, very long, we ended up spending a total of $131 on food, and a large majority of that was eating out. But still, we still have plenty of money left in my food cash envelopes, so I'm happy with that. So we started with nothing, we added 200, we spent 131. So I should be able to do that math in my head, but you guys know that my mental math game is weak, so we're just going to go ahead and use the calculator. That means that there should be $69 remaining in my envelope. So I have my wallet here with my cash envelopes. I'm just going to go ahead and go in there and make sure that I do in fact have $69. So I have $20, $40, $60, $70. And the reason that sometimes happens, the amount that shows up on the paper isn't quite exactly what I have in my wallet, is because I tend not to do change. So if I get quarters back or change in general back, I just drop that in a jar. In this case, I must have rounded up when I wrote in how much I spent, or rounded down or rounded up. I don't know what I did, but I'm $1 off. I'm not really worried about it being exact, but I am going to go ahead and change this so that the amount that I have remaining is $70. Just so that when I go to do my weekly check-in next week, I'm not confused about where the extra dollar came from. So I spent $130. I guess technically it was $130. So I must have used some change to cover one of these transactions or something. It doesn't matter. I don't quibble over $1 or $2. So that's that. That takes care of food. Close enough. Next up then is my spending. So my spending is written in here in purple. You can see that I spent $20. Well, okay, so I started out with nothing. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I started out with nothing and I added $40. So that gave me a total of $40 to work with for the week. And I'm actually over budget a little bit here because I spent a little bit more than that with the rounding up and the change and things. So at Walmart on November 2nd, I bought another pillow and a Euro sham for my bed. I actually recently went in and bought all new bedding, and I used my checking account buffer to buy it because we had a lot of extra money in the bank. I like to keep a buffer of a couple $100, and we had even more than that. We had quite a bit of a buffer that we had built up, and I thought about taking that and using it towards debt, but ultimately I decided to spoil myself a little bit, buy myself brand new bedding. I bought a down duvet insert and a duvet cover and a quilt and a lot of really nice bedding. Called it my birthday present to myself. And that I did last week. You may have seen, if you kind of glanced at my expense tracker when I was chit-chatting here, there were some things that were uncategorized, and that was because I pulled that from my buffer. So that's what that was. That was my bedding. But when I got everything home and I made my bed up and it looked all pretty, I decided I needed another Euro pillow and a Euro sham. So that I went ahead and took out of my spending money because I'd already used up that surplus in my buffer. So that was another $20. And then I bought myself a pair of earrings from Kate Spade, and those were $22. So it was a total of $42 that I spent. And so here's the way I'll do it. I'll say that I spent $42, and that's going to leave me with a negative balance, negative $2. So that just means then for week 2, when I add my typical 40, instead of adding 40, I'll add 38, and that'll make up the $2 difference. Again, I don't really quibble over a couple of dollars here or there. All right, next up then is gas. Let's try to move this along. I'm being way too chatty. So for gas, we started with $40, and I added, I believe it was 40 more. Let me just double check. Yep, we added 40 more, so we had a total of 80 to start, and it's really good that we did that because I started out the week with my gas tank completely empty. So I filled up at the start of the week, and I actually had missed it when I was tracking my transactions, so I just kind of stuck it here at the end. On the 4th of November, I put $30 in my gas tank, so that didn't quite give us a full tank. Then we ran around all week, and then we went up north for the weekend. So by the end of the weekend, then my gas tank was empty again, and I put 45 more in there. So I spent a total of 75. We started out with 80. I spent 75. That means there should be $5 left in my envelope. And we'll double check that. So did I show you guys my remaining balances? I don't even know if I did. Yes, we did. We did for food. For my envelope, of course, my envelope is empty. And then my gasoline envelope here has that $5 remaining. So that is all good. And then the last category we have here for my weekly check-in is miscellaneous. I started with 20 in my miscellaneous envelope. I added 20. So we had a total of 40. I tracked my miscellaneous in this green color, and you can see we had just one puny little $2 transaction. So I had a credit with Grove Collaborative of $20, and my Grove order ended up being $22. So I just had to pay the difference. And I just pulled that out of my miscellaneous envelope. So we spent a whopping $2. So 40 minus 2, there should be $38 remaining in there. Really quickly, let's find out. So we have 20, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. So that all tracks, with the exception of the food that was a little bit off, but again, we don't worry about $1 or $2 because of that change. So that's my weekly check-in then. So my starting balances for week 2, we're going to have $70 in food that we're going to roll over into next week, and then we'll add another $200. So we'll start with $270. I'm going to start out with a -2 for myself, so that's totally fine. I'm going to add money to my cash envelopes here in just another day or two, so that'll be just fine. For gas, we're going to start out with 5, and then our miscellaneous for week 2 is going to start out with 38. So those will be the starting balances here. I could have written them in, I just didn't, so we'll do that when I do my weekly check-in next week. So that takes care of the weekly check-in. Let's just go ahead then and wrap up my paycheck budget. Boy, have I rambled quite a bit. So we're skipping over sinking funds. You guys know we're going to do sinking funds at the end of the month. For my extra debt payment for Chase, I budgeted $170. You can see that my extra debt payment in gray here was $170 to Chase, so that was all as planned. And so the only thing we have left to do then is fill in this totals box, and I'm going to go ahead and fold it over so I'm not struggling to write on the coil here. So the income that we started with was $1,200, and if you missed that budget video, know that $1,200 is not the amount of my husband's paycheck. You guys know we're a single income family, and my husband does not want to disclose his income, but we talked and we decided that we could disclose the amount we were budgeting with. So this is not what my husband's paycheck is. This is a combination of things. Some money from my husband's paycheck, some money from sinking funds, any money that we've rolled over from last week, that sort of thing. So we started out with $1,200 that we budgeted. That was as planned. For our checking, we spent $387.99. For cash envelopes, we added $350. Nothing to sinking funds. $170 was the extra debt payment. So now I'm going to pull in my calculator. We're going to take that $1,200, subtract the $387.99, subtract $350, subtract $170, and that gives us a rollover amount of $292.01. So even though we had that unbudgeted expense, because that soccer expense didn't come out, we have a little bit more in rollover than I originally anticipated. So that's great. This $292 then will get lumped in with all of the other money that we have to budget, and that will be the total income amount that we're working with when I do week 2's budget. So overall, it was a pretty good week. We did do a lot of eating out, and that's something I'm hoping we nip in the bud for week 2, especially since we definitely need to do a big grocery shop this week. We've been doing smaller grocery trips the last couple of weeks, but now we're out of a lot of things. So obviously, if we're spending more on groceries, we need to spend less in eating out. They kind of work on a balancing system, right? So yeah, that is it. I hope you enjoyed this video and you didn't mind my rambling. If you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up. It really helps out my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. I post new budgeting and lifestyle content here on my channel every single week. I'd love to have you come back, and I will see you next time. Bye!